Hey guys, welcome to episode 25 of the Game Dev Discussion, the official podcast of the Dynasty Empire. I'm your host Alex Beddoes, and today we've got a special episode. We have the senior games recruiter at Max Swift on, Max Stuart. How are we doing, dude?
Hey Alex, yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. So you're self-proclaimed brightest hair in your field.
That's it, self-proclaimed. No one else, sadly. I get Mick taken out of me in the office about it, but yeah, I like it.
Dude, I've been really looking forward to having you on because as someone who's very active in a lot of different art communities, you always see like what's the word, when the people are looking for jobs, it's like, oh yeah, do this and don't do that and do this, and there are always people who are artists but never recruiters saying stuff like that. So it'd be really good to dispel a few myths, well as dive into other stuff. The first one I need to get out off my chest, I need to know the answer to this. You see XP bars on a CV, good or bad?
I like an XP bar. I think it shows a bit of artistic flair, to be honest. I think if you are going for an art position and you've shown that and your CV is a little bit different, it's not just Times New Roman on a white sheet. It shows that you are a little bit arty, and that can only be a good thing, right? If it's done well.
Right, okay, that's interesting. It's funny because I browse Twitter from time to time and I see like a big post rant like, stop putting XP bars on your CV, and I'm like, I think a recruiter actually thinks about them.
Yeah, I've had quite a few people, especially on the more UI art side, will definitely put XP bars in there. Yeah, even again, like on the environment and character, well, they'll go through like Max, Maya, Unreal, that sort of experience, all in XP bars. I feel personally that it's quite a nice way to lay it out.
Do you see it as you're not necessarily trying to take them literally and like working out what their experience are in each software, you just see it as, it looks quite cool, I know you use that piece of software, fine, that's enough for me. You're not trying to take it quite literally, are you?
Actually, a nice overview to sort of get you going, and that can also sort of lead on to, should an interview happen, a conversation further down the line of where they see themselves.
Brilliant. And what about, so I'm a big advocate for ArtStation as your portfolio platform, simply because it's so easy. Like, you know, you get there, you see everything you need to see, it naturally shows any questions you might have. So whenever I speak to like people who are looking to get into the industry, I'm always saying put ArtStation as your portfolio. As from a recruiter's point of view, like, do you see it that way too, or you don't really pay too much attention to that side of stuff? It's like, as long as it's a good portfolio, you're not really thinking about the platform too much.
Yeah, I'll always recommend ArtStation as my number one. Just because obviously it is so big right now, and it is very simple. There's quite a few people that will spend a lot of time sort of creating their own portfolio from scratch. I personally don't think there's much need to do this when you can use ArtStation when it's very clean and makes it very easy for you, and you're then straight away putting your work with some of the most talented people in the world. It is becoming a bit more of a recruitment platform as well. I speak to a lot of studios that are advertising their role straight on there, and they are actually searching for people through ArtStation, whereas if you've just got a personal portfolio, that's much, much harder to do.
Yeah, I have to admit, watching Jeremy Estrada's stream where he's like reviewing people's portfolios, the ones when they're on ArtStation tend to go way smoother, as opposed to like the ones where he's having to navigate a website and sort of figure out a few bits. It can get quite confusing. So yeah, I do really think ArtStation is like the strongest platform right now for just showing stuff off.
Yeah, for sure.
One last myth which I always hear, and I actually do this as well, is the whole keep your CV on one page. Because the old thing is, oh yeah, you know, recruiters get that many. If it's too many pages, they'll just bin it. Like, I don't think you guys necessarily bin CVs, but I do think having it all on one page is very good. What's like from a recruiter's point of view? What do you read into that, or are you like, nah, you'll just read them either way?
Again, I think it's sort of like a case-by-case basis, and depending on your experience. I think for maybe the more junior roles, I don't think you'd need much more than one page on a CV. Should you then also, you're going for like sort of like, you're at lead level and art director level, you can start looking, because you obviously have more experience, there's more to talk about. Really depends on the person, but for the more junior to mid-level, 2 pages at an absolute maximum.
That's fair enough. So I'm just curious to understand your process a bit more. You get an email. So say, for example, I email you and I say, hi Max, I'm looking for a job. Below is linked to my portfolio, my CV. from your point of view, which do you look at first? Do you read through the CV to make sure they have all the skills required before you start delving into the portfolio, or do you look at the portfolio first?
So that's a good question. I'd probably say that as a starter, if we are looking at an artist position, I mean, a portfolio is everything, really. So I would always look at a portfolio first. Always portfolio first, to be honest. That is going to show you a million different things. A million more things than a CV will.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Do recruiters sort of, and I mean this in the most polite way possible, do you guys keep up with the software, the trends? Do you understand like the fundamentals of the software? So say for example, let me think. A recruit is creating their textures in Substance Designer as a case by case example. Do you sort of at a fundamental level understand what that software is, what it means, what software it rules out from? You know, for example, if you're using Designer, you don't necessarily need to spend so much time in say Mixer or Alchemist. Do you like do I don't mean just you personally, but do recruiters understand the software from a technical point of view, and do you keep up with it?
Yeah, so I think that definitely it's going to vary on recruiter to recruiter, and if they are focused on the more games. So I try and do keep on top of it, and I think I understand it at a very basic level. So for example, character art, I understand that you're going to be starting off with Z brushes and then moving on to texture, and that sort of very basic level. We do like to, when we are taking on a very important part. So for example, if a new role comes in for me, the first thing I'll try and do is have a call with the hiring manager just to discuss exactly what they're looking for in more detail for this person, and then speaking to those sort of people. So we're talking sort of like lead artists. It obviously gives me more information about their processes, because ultimately I've been in game studios, but I've never been involved in the development process. So my knowledge is anything I've picked up from YouTube, from speaking to my candidates, and from speaking to my clients. So I try and be as much as a sponge as possible there, just so I can try and understand it, because obviously it is important, and they are very technical roles. And like, if I am helping you find a role, I need to, of course, understand what you're doing.
So you get a lot of details from the art managers and the art directors and the lead artists, and so they'll say we want someone who uses, say for example, Blender or Max, and then they'll give you the details of what they actually mean by that. So say for example, they will say, okay, we want candidates to do full low poly, high poly, UV and wrapping all in one software. That's the sort of detail they give you, the sort of micro detail. But you guys still keep on top of, like, say for example, the big thing going on with Blender at the moment. Do you guys keep on top of that?
I'd probably say less so. If it's something that there's a requirement from the hiring manager for this role, this would be, of course, something that I'll then look into, and then when I'm speaking to the candidates, it'd be something that I'd flag up straight away, like an initial pre-screen when I'm speaking to them, and then sort of pass that on to the hiring manager to see where they are with Blender, for example.
That's really interesting. It's that's an interesting dynamic. Imagine then, like, someone like you then, who's a senior at this point, you've spoken to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hiring managers. You probably picked up quite a lot of, like, I don't even want to call it base knowledge. You probably have quite good understanding of, like, the 3D and game development process in general at this point.
I'd say I've got a decent knowledge. I think if you started running some Unreal or Unity stuff through me, I might run in the complete opposite direction. I mean, I'm still learning a lot, because it's difficult, because I have to have all the game side and the game dev side, and of course I've got the recruitment side as well. So it's sort of finding sort of in between, I guess, of and trying to get all that knowledge as possible, which is difficult. But no, it is really fun to sort of just discuss really with all these hiring managers, all these candidates, about what they do day to day, because super fun industry.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think well, I mean, it's interesting actually, since you are senior and you have got a lot of experience. Have you got any anecdotes of like a really good CV you received, like one which is blowing you away? And I don't just mean this guy was like lead artist at Bungie and Call of
Sure.
Duty or whatever. Like just you saw it and you're like, damn, this is a strong CV. This is impressive. You got any anecdotes of that?
So let me have a think. Now we sort of touched on it earlier about the XP bars. So yeah, like I sort of said, when it is an artist, I do like to see that they've used some of their artistic ability. So that'll be, for example, some people do like XP bars, some people do like a small pie chart, and they'll do this on like hard skills, but they'll also touch on soft skills as well, which I think is quite good. For example, if you're going for a lead artist role, you're going to have some sort of there. So it's not just necessarily the hard skills, but touch on the soft skills as well. That's what I quite like. I've seen some people do up just straight references from people they've worked with in the past.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
That's quite a nice thing to put on there. And I do see quite a lot of artists using a good amount of color on their CV as well. Again, it's not just a white sheet Times New Roman.
What about the other side of the spectrum then? What are some pitfalls? And I again, avoiding the old cliches of grammar, like, you know, you see someone misspelled, obviously that's not good. But is there anything that people do which they think is good and you're like, oh, please stop doing that, it's just not helping? Is there anything like that?
I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily super bad that you can do. One thing I think that can always be improved is that people will say, I was an environment artist at X studio, and then they'll leave that. And what the hiring managers really want to see is sort of a breakdown of specifically your responsibilities in that role. Even be that at university, you want to see specifically, this is what I was using, I used it in this way, not just I created environments. They want to see your entire cycle, really.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've said it a few times over the like 25 episodes I've been doing this now. I've had a lot of environment artists on, and pretty much every single one was wildly different.
Yeah.
And I feel like now, I've said to previous people, is that environment art is as generic a term as I'm a 3D artist, because it can mean so many different things to so many different people. So yeah, I think that's quite a good one actually, like being detailed about your role. What about in the portfolio side of stuff? So is there anything like layout wise? Okay, here's an interesting point. Is it good when is it good's a bad question, sorry. Do you prefer it when a client candidate has older work on their portfolio? So I used to put old work on my portfolio, and I started removing it because of the old cliche was you're only as good as your worst piece, which I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I used to think of it as it's good to show where I came from. How do you view it from a recruiter? What's the experience of it when art managers see it? Like, can you give any insight to
that? It's very tricky. I think you can definitely see both sides of it, and it can be subjective based on the hiring manager. So involved in our grads in games competition, I'll touch on later, but basically, so I was in a room with the head of art of Sumo Digital and their lead character artist, and that was basically we were reviewing these graduates' CVs and most importantly their portfolios. Their key points work.
So dude, just letting you know, you cut out then, missed about 2-3 seconds of that.
Sorry, where did you lose me?
You review people's portfolios with the Sumo Digital art leads.
So yeah, we're reviewing their portfolios, and then they came across was that if it's an unfinished piece of work, they don't think that it should be in your portfolio, because your portfolio should be work that you're proud to show off. Like, this is what I can accomplish. Whereas if you're showing unfinished pieces, that's a bit of a question mark there. Then when it comes to older work, now say you're only as good as your last piece, but then the other side of the coin is it can show natural progression of you as an artist and could potentially show where you could get to in the future. So definitive answer there, which I know is a difficult one.
I think, especially a bit with the unfinished work, because I used to use it as, you know, showing works in progresses, and I was like, okay, that's a bad idea, stop doing that. But I know people still do that now, so that's still really useful.
I think that's what the lead character artist at Sumo said to me directly. He was just sort of like, if it's unfinished, it shouldn't really be in a portfolio. Portfolio is where you're going to showcase all of your best work.
Do you pay much attention to if you see articles on their portfolio? So say, using the easy example of 80 level, if you saw an 80 level article, does that say anything to you, or are you kind of like, you don't even acknowledge it as anything? You just sort of go, okay, it's an article. Because I have spoken to a couple of recruiters who go like, oh, I see a level 80 article, and they're like, oh, it's almost like a badge of honor. I was curious, do you see it that way too? Not a badge of honor, but you know what I mean? Like, it validates the artist a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I have had a few of my candidates that I've placed sort of had articles in there as well. So it's always nice to sort of read more in depth of what they've been doing. Yeah, I think it's anything that can sort of like validate yourself as an artist, and it does seem like a really good way to get yourself out there as well.
Nice. And there's one thing, again, I don't know how much hard advice you'd be able to give around this. When communicating with recruiters, is there anything sort of do's or don'ts? So say, for example, you know, when you're talking via LinkedIn, email, phone, there's one comment I had a long time ago, and although I personally chose to ignore it, I couldn't understand where they were coming from. I sign all my emails with "Cheers, Alex." That's just the way I finish emails. And they said it's a bit too casual for their liking. And they said it came across as inappropriate and somewhat unprofessional. And I sort of thought, okay. I need to think about the way I sign. I did change it because it's just who I am. However, it did get me thinking about the whole, if someone could read into the way I sign an email, you know, how much are they reading into the other ways I speak? So is there anything in your experience, you know, when you're communicating with the candidate that you're like, that's kind of sketchy, or don't do that, or you've seen people slip up in the past? Apart from swearing, don't swear, obviously.
Of course. So was this a like an agency recruiter like myself, or was this an internal recruiter at a studio? An agency recruiter.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd say that sounds pretty harsh, to be honest. It is quite a casual industry compared to a lot of them out there, and obviously all agencies are going to be different, but we try and have quite a casual approach with our candidates at Advert Swift. So saying something like "Cheers," I couldn't see dealing with someone at our side, because as an agency we're sort of working in between with a candidate and a client, and we're in between there. So we'll try and how do I put this? I think from the candidate side, it's completely fine to be. You want your candidate to be very relaxed with you and completely transparent with you as them as a person, and then I think it's up to the recruiter to sort of present you to that candidate in the way that. Then obviously, when it comes to interview stages, I would speak to the candidate, and this would sort of need to be because even when you go into interviews, I mean, it's never a full suit. It is quite relaxed. It's a very relaxed industry. So that surprised me that you've said that, actually.
Yeah, it was a case of it was basically phrased in a way of, I'd stop doing that when you're talking to the studio, because I feel like that's very overly casual. And like I said, I did ignore it because I was like, it's me, it's who I am. Like, I turned up to interviews in jeans and a t-shirt and trainers. You know, I'm not sort of rock.
And that is games, right?
Yeah, that was my perception of it. I didn't make too much of it, but it did get me thinking, if someone reads that much into the way someone signs an email, how much are they reading into everything else you're saying? That's what got me thinking about it.
It is interesting. Obviously, when you are sending a CV and a portfolio, you are sort of putting yourself on display as much as you can, and you don't want to rub anyone the wrong way. So it is always best to present yourself in the best manner that you think is possible. And obviously, if you want to come across as the real you, saying something like cheers or just how you act, I couldn't see any issue with that. I think to turn someone down based on saying cheers would be.
I let's hope that were why I got to. I did get the job I was going for.
Nice.
I hope it wasn't really cheers. I doubt it was. One other thing actually you could probably help with. It's like almost a meme at this point. It's you got a junior job spec, and it says 2 years experience or like 1 year experience, and then all the juniors out there, all the people trying to get in the industry go, well, how am I meant to get experience if you need a year's experience to get a junior's role?
Yeah.
Now I have my own opinions on it, but I'm curious. One, do you get asked that when you when you advertise a junior role? What's your advice to people like who are looking to get their first job, i.e. junior, but it asks for some sort of experience?
So starting with the junior jobs needing 2 years experience, that you can experience, but an absolutely outstanding portfolio showing like full photorealistic environments. I think that studios can have a very hard time turning that person down. A bit. Right. Art is always subjective, isn't it? Yeah. So it is a difficult one, but I think for a junior environment artist, I would expect a junior environment artist to not expect 2 years experience. I would say the junior would be graduate side, and then sort of like 2 to 3 years experience, you'd be looking more at the mid-level point, based on what I've seen.
So do you
obviously
sorry, go on.
Sorry, carry on.
Does the
from the
no, you definitely this time go.
Yep. So I was just going to say on the juniors, so the people that are just graduating, obviously it is a very, very competitive thing, and speaking to a lot of studios that are looking for juniors, I think what they are really looking for on the art is someone that hasn't just done their degree. It's played out. The people that usually get jobs are people that are doing their degree, and they're also doing a ton of personal projects as well, and anything else. So I did want to touch on the sort of like search for a star competition that Aardvark Swift do run. That they sort of help bridge the gap between education and game studios in the UK and Europe. So basically what we do is we go around to quite a few universities. I think we're 20 universities this coming year, and basically we speak to a lot of game design students, game art students about what we do. And it's basically a big competition that we run with a lot of video game studios, so AAA studios. So I mentioned Sumo Digital earlier, Endreams are a big one, Firesprite as well. So basically we'll get them involved, and there'll be tests set. So based on what your speciality is, so there'll be a programming tests sent out, environment tests, character tests. And basically we get people that already work in the game industry, go for like senior and above, and they'll sort of like grade these tests. So I believe the first one is set by the studio, and then the second test is is sort of like a test of the candidates chosen, and then all these results are collated, and then there's a finals day that takes place. So we had it in Sheffield, where we're based, last year, where I think we had about 15 different studios come down, and we get some panels together. So panels of people from the likes of Sumo, from the likes of Cloud Imperium. They'll all sit down and interview these candidates, and we get a good amount of people that are actually coming out with junior jobs from this. So if you are someone that is trying to break into this industry, I'd definitely have a look at our search for a star competition on the Aardvark website and get involved, because it really is a good way to sort of bridge that gap from education to game studio.
So what is it is it kind of almost like almost like the ArtStation challenges, I assume? Like it's a professional brief they set to give you some, like, a taste of the professional life, and you just work to that, create a piece of art to the spec, and they'll judge your results. And does someone like what so the winner does? I'm guessing the winner doesn't necessarily get a job, but it gives them a very good chance of getting a job, I assume.
So I was on the character art one last year. So there was 3 finalists. The winner got a job at Sumo Digital, and the runner-up, I can't remember where, but also ended up getting a job out of it as well. Basically, when it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get some job offers. I mean, the winner on the program, and he got multiple offers. So it's just, obviously, I think one of the really difficult parts on the junior side is getting your face in front of game studios and being able to go to an event where there's a lot of game studios there, and they're specifically there looking for graduates. Sort of get yourself out of there.
I think you touched on it earlier. I think it's also some sort of extracurricular activities. You know, there's no point, you don't just go to uni, finish uni, then walk into a job. The guys who get a job are the ones doing all the extras. So like you said, personal work, I'm guessing competitions like these, the ArtStation challenges, like all these sort of extra things. So one, it builds your portfolio, because obviously it's more artwork for your portfolio. But like you engage in the community, which is the important bit.
Definitely, and that's why, again, like we said about ArtStation is so good, because you are putting your work straight in there with hundreds of thousands of amazing artists, and then there are sort of like search algorithms that you can go into. So when studios are looking for artists, you can actually delve in there and search for people based on their location and based on their skills, and just browse through and find the ones that are right for them.
I'm actually interested in these challenges you're running. This or competition, should I say? It's So what sort of, like, when they come down, you got the panel and all this kind of stuff. What do the artists get feedback directly on their work, or is it more of we'll judge the winner and then the winner gets selected, like, or do they get do a lot of the people get that sort of one-to-one feedback on their work they're doing?
So for everyone that applies, I believe there is some level of feedback on what's good and what's bad in their work, and then everyone that comes to the final day and gets interviewed, we say interview, it's more of a, well, on the character side where I've been, it's more of been, you'll sit down and then the lead character artist, the head of art, will just run through your portfolio and why you made certain decisions, which, I mean, must be absolutely amazing for someone trying to get a junior position, to have that sort of, like you say, one-to-one feedback then and there in person.
That sounds actually really sick. That sounds really, really cool. Especially from it's also the fact that it's lead artists, because there is a very big difference between like a lead artist and just an environment artist or a senior. In the sense that that's what they do. They direct. They're the guys steering the ship. They're the guys directing things. So having a lead, because their times are valuable. So having someone like that being able to feedback your work and give you the sort of direction that they'd give to their staff sounds pretty invaluable. I'm amazed I haven't heard of this up to now. I'm kind of good at it. I haven't heard of this until now. That's been good.
It is really good, and it's only getting bigger and bigger every year. I mean, we were out in Belgium, going to a few universities there, further into Europe. So yeah, it's only getting bigger and better, and that means finding more and more amazing juniors and placing them in their dream jobs.
That's actually really interesting. I'm just imagining what it would be like for the students. That sounds incredible. So what other categories do you do? So you said character and environment art. Do you have like VFX, animation?
That's right. So there is a VFX. I don't believe there's an animation at this point. The VFX one was quite new. I think it was the first one last year. The winner of that, I believe he joined Cloud Imperium as well. So yeah, it is growing and growing.
I'm sick to hear that people are like, it's like the winner got a job, winner got a job, winner got a job, runners up got a job, and I imagine a load more people also who can participate got jobs too, because the types of people that participate are probably the types of people who are doing the extra stuff anyway. So
absolutely, that's what the studios want. And we have all these like the interviews taking place, but there's like a big hall that we use where there's loads of other studios as well, and they're sort of like, this is what we're doing, giving out business cards, and then a lot of the students that aren't even in the competition will come along and say, hey, can you take a look at my portfolio, like what do you think about this? It's just like a really nice day of sort of like giving back to the more junior side of the games industry.
No, that sounds dope. I'm legit. I'm actually jealous that I didn't know about this when I was younger. Because if it was about when I was younger, that'd have been sick. There's one thing I do want to touch on, and this isn't about like sort of shit talking people so people can learn. You hear the word someone's a bad candidate thrown around. I've heard it a few times in other studios. Like that person was a bad candidate, or once they were placed in a job role, or during the interview stages. Now, the reason I ask is I think it's important for people to understand what that actually means so they don't make the same mistakes, because a lot of the time I imagine it's unintentional. I don't think a bad candidate is someone who tells the lead to F off. Like,
punch him in the face.
Exactly. But it's probably stuff they're doing which is made someone go, that's not the right person, that's a bad candidate, or whatever. Could you like elaborate on that, or have you heard that term before in the recruitment industry? It's something I've heard a few times, but it might be more with internal recruiters. But I'm just curious because one, it's a very grey term, and hopefully shed some light on it.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it is quite a grey term, and it could mean quite a few things. When I think of a bad candidate, it's going to be somebody that not necessarily based on their skills, but who they are as a person. So for example, if there's going to be a bad candidate who is not going to be, how can I put this?
I like to put people on the spot, sorry.
I know, you've dropped me right in it here. It's more about them as a person. Obviously, at a studio creating a game, you're all one big team focusing on one big end goal, right? So studios are hiring, that is always on their mind. So I do think soft skills are quite important. So you are a team player and you are driven and you are passionate about the industry. Say for example, on my side, if I've got a bad candidate, that might be somebody that just isn't turning up for his interviews. I've got him an interview and he just decides to just not tell me and nothing happened. That straight away is a red flag. Because obviously I am my clients are sort of a level of pre-screening from me. Yeah. So for example, I'm putting someone forward and they, for example, just like could be outright nasty, then that again falls back on me. So I don't think it really be sort of like a portfolio that isn't right. It's more about their soft skills and who they are as a person, if that makes sense.
I would go say out of 10, because so this feels a bit alien to me because I can't imagine, like, it just doesn't click in my head to not turn up to an interview and not tell somebody, or to come across as nasty in an interview. Now that's alien to me. However, I understand it happens. How often does it happen when you candidates, like, out of 10 candidates, how often is it someone is unintentionally nasty or doesn't turn up to an interview? Because it clearly happens. If you're saying it now, then it obviously happens.
It happens, but it is ridiculously rare. I'd say, less than 0.1%.
Oh, really? Okay.
But obviously, it's absolutely tiny. But obviously, it's just based on people. I think this industry as a whole is a very friendly, very nice industry, and everyone does seem to get on very well, as opposed to other industries out there. But of course, there's always going to be one bad apple there somewhere, right? But no, as a whole, it's all bad candidates.
No, that's fair enough. It's interesting you said that, because I do think it's the thing that's actually probably a shame about it is, I suppose soft skills are something that come with maturity and experience. When you're younger, you're obviously focusing on your portfolio. You sort of forget about the soft skills a little bit. You're just so hell-bent on developing artwork, that you forget to do the soft skills. And
I think it's important to realize as well with these people that are going for the more junior side jobs, they're not expecting to be someone at a lead artist level. They're expecting someone that has some really strong like art techniques, and then someone with a lot of passion, a lot of drive, that it's going to be able to get into that studio and learn. Because at junior, you're not going to be like, right, cool, you need to go make that environment. You've got a month. That's not what's going to happen. They want someone that is going to sort of like come in there and just be eager and there and ready to learn.
yeah, be a sponge.
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. I mean, it is something I think the younger people going for junior roles sort of forget sometimes. Is like you said, they're not looking for you to be the finished article.
For sure.
They put themselves under so much pressure to say the right things and do the right things. They forget to just be themselves. And that's when we've had interviews in the past and we're just sort of like crack a few jokes early on because they're just so uptight and terrified. Need them to like ease up a bit so they can actually think and speak properly.
And that's what they want. They want to learn what you're sort of like. You make decisions on specific pieces, and what your process is. So it's always nice to see as well on the more junior side is breakdown. For example, if you made an environment, say you've gone from this is the concept piece I made, just breaking it down piece by piece and why you made decisions, because that's on the junior side, that is what the hiring managers are looking for.
So I suppose that's where stuff like the 80 level articles and the experience points articles come in, because they force you to do a breakdown. So if you're a junior and you have one of them, you've naturally got that breakdown there and there.
For sure.
Just thinking, that's quite... I suppose, yeah, you don't see that really, do you? People will just post their final artwork and you don't see the behind the scenes very often with junior people, do you?
I mean, yeah, everyone wants to show off the amazing finished article, but from speaking to a lot of these people in the studio, they want to see how you got there and the journey you took to get there.
Is that a piece of advice you sometimes give to candidates? Like they've got a load of final artwork, you're like, dude, just make a post, do a quick behind the scenes breakdown of your piece, because I think that'd be really helpful for you finding a job? Or is it do you go that deep into advice to your candidates, or is it like
Sure.
it's so case by case that you can't?
You know what we do? I mean, so we do have a graduate desk that is obviously quite involved in the search for a star and grads in game company. They're the ones that deal with all our grads roles. So we've got 2 consultants that work on that. So yeah, they're on the phone most of the day, sort of giving portfolio advice and CV advice that we get directly from the studios.
Nice. That sounds good, man. Right, I think we're going to wrap up, Max. I'm going to ask you a question now, which I ask every guest on the show. Bit more different for you, being a recruiter. If you could give one golden bit of advice, and actually this is going to be pretty good coming from you since you're the guy helping place these people. But if you could give one bit of golden advice to a candidate applying for a junior role, what would it be? Caught you again, haven't I?
Yeah, you caught me. For a junior role, at least one fully finished personal project, as opposed to go along with all university work, to show that you have done something outside of your normal classes. Because I think that is what sets aside just getting along and doing their course, and the candidates that really care and really want to go far and are putting their time out of hours.
You know what? Actually, that's probably the best bit of advice you could give, I suppose. It's just downright go outside of your regular activity and do something extra, essentially. Max, I think we're going to wrap up there, dude. I appreciate you coming on. I will, Would you like me to drop your contact details in this video description so people can get hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
Sweet. Right, guys, thank you for listening. And this podcast will be on Spotify, SoundCloud, it'll be on the Dynasty YouTube channel, and it'll be on iTunes podcast. But Max, cheers for coming on, dude.
Cheers.
Peace out, guys.